All right, so we're going to talk today about the equation of the parabola. So remember we talked about the parabola and we talked about it being the equation of a quadratic with a degree 2 yesterday. So when I talk about the equation of the parabola, there's three ways that I can write the equation of a parabola in, but today we're going to focus, or in this course, we're going to focus on one of the three forms, okay? I'm going to show you the three forms, but I'm going to tell you which one we're going to focus on. So the first form that you can see a quadratic in is called the standard form. So that's the most expanded form. The second form is the factored form. We've already talked about these two forms briefly, but we didn't graph from these forms. We just talked about them, and then we went between the two terms. Okay, you might not have noticed, but we have done going from this to this by either factoring or by expanding. If you remember the term FOIL, right? We FOIL to go from factor to standard, and we factor to go from standard to factored. We did this. The form that we haven't talked about yet, and now we're going to use today's lesson to basically go over it and then see what I can find from that form, is called the vertex form. And the vertex form is y equals ax minus h squared plus k. Now, you see all these letters A, H, and K, right? These are going to be numbers. The x and the y, they're going to stay x and y, but I'm going to have to find the values for A, H, and K, okay? Or they'll be given to me. So, what we learned yesterday, we learned how to find different points on the graph. You guys remember that? We learned how to find the x-intercept. We learned how to find the y-intercept, axis of symmetry, vertex, right? What do you think, from the vertex form, what do you think I can find easily? It's in the name. From the vertex form, what do you think I can find easily? The vertex. That's why it's called the vertex form. Okay? It's called the vertex form because from it, you can find what your vertex is. And remember that the vertex is either this point, which is your max, or if you have a graph that's opening up, it's going to be your min. Right? So this is what you can find from the vertex form. Now in this lesson, we're going to look at what does A represent in my equation. Okay, what does it do? What does it tell me about my graph? We're going to understand what the values H and K represent. And then we're going to be able to find the axis of symmetry. We're going to graph. And then substitution into quadratic equation. We'll talk about that when we find table of values. Okay? So, the first thing I want to explore with you guys is that value of A that comes right in the front. So it's A bracket x minus h squared plus k. That A is going to be a value. It's going to be either 2, negative 2, plus 5 over 3, minus 2. What does it mean? What does that value of A mean? We're going to look at if it's positive or negative. Okay? So if the value of A is positive, then your graph is going to open up. Okay? So if A is positive, the graph is going to open up. Positive means happy and smile. Okay? Now, if the value of A is negative, then it will open down. Now here's a question for you. If A is negative, here's what I show my students. Look at the board for a second. Negative starts with the letter N. N has the shape of a parabola. Which way does it open? Which way does N open? Down. So when A is negative, the parabola is going to open down like the letter N. Okay? So this is kind of a way to remember it. Okay? When A is negative, the parabola is going to open down. Okay? I have an equation here. Does it look like the vertex form that we have seen? Does it look like y equals a value bracket x minus or plus a value squared plus a value? Yeah? Does it look like this? But I have a value for A, I have a value for H, I have a value of K. Do you guys understand that? Do you guys see that? My question to you is, does this look like this? Does it? What's A? What's the value of A? Negative 2. What's the value of K? What's the value of K? Sorry. K is 5. What's the value of H is negative? Is 3. H is 3. Okay? And K is 5. Okay? And you see the rest is XX square square. Okay? Now A in this case is positive or negative? A is negative, right? Since A is negative, which way is your parabola going to open? It's going to open down. Okay? So by looking at my equation, by looking at A, right? If A is negative, then I know that the graph is going to open down. So here's another one. Using the value of A in the equation given, state whether its parabola would open up or down. What's the value of A here? No, it's that value that's outside the bracket, which in this case it's 1. Yeah? If there's no value, it's 1. Is 1 positive or negative? 1 is positive, right? So the value of A is positive, right? So which way does the graph open? Perfect. What?
No, it never bothers me when it's bothers
Just come and sit here.
me. It's okay.
Are you guys okay with this? Okay, so the value of A tells you which way the graph's open. Okay? Now, as I said, this is called the vertex form. This format called the vertex form. And from the vertex form, I can find what the vertex is. The vertex is actually represented by the values of H and K. Okay? So you see that H and K here, they represent your vertex. Okay? So let's look at this. So state the coordinates of the vertex of the parabola given the following equation, y equals negative 2x minus 3 squared plus 5. The vertex is a point. Yes, you remember that from yesterday? It's a point. This part is the h part, and this part is the k part, yes? Because if I look at this, y equals ax minus h squared plus k. Okay? So this is the h part, this is the k part. The vertex is 3, 5. No. Why? Because you see this negative here? It is supposed to be there. Okay? So the h part is always opposite to what you see due to that negative that's in the formula. So if it's in the bracket is a negative 3, then the vertex is actually positive 3, the h value. Okay? If it's positive, then it will be negative. Only the h part. Okay? So if I look at this right here, what's my vertex in this equation? X plus 2 squared minus 4. What's my vertex? 2, negative 4. Do you guys agree with that? What is it? What should it be? Negative 2. Right? Because it's going to be opposite sign. Okay? Let me show you why. Okay? This is supposed to be x minus h squared. Yes? That's what my formula says. Right? My h is negative 2. So if I plug in negative 2 for h, I get this. X minus negative 2 squared plus k. Yeah? What's minus and negative right after each other? Positive. So that actually goes as x plus 2 squared plus k. You see why? Now there, because you have the negative and the negative, right? So instead of putting the bracket, I actually multiplied that negative by the negative to make it positive.
So I'm saying if there's no bracket, like on the last page, like y equals x squared plus 5.
Mm-hmm. This one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So since there's no bracket, this is the same thing as basically writing this. Yeah? Because x minus 0 is just x. So I don't have to write that minus 0. So if there's nothing and there's no bracket, that means the h value is 0. So what's your vertex here? 0 and 5. Okay? What's your vertex for B? For B. Three, 0. Yeah, because this is technically, there is a 0 here, but we don't write it. So the vertex here is 3, 0. What about D? Yeah. There's nothing. Exactly, there is nothing. Which way does this open?
So you can't even graph that. It's just 0, 0.
It is. You can graph it. I'll show you. I'll show you. It's a vertex at 0, 0. Here. Let me show you.
0, 0 would just be a dot on 0.
It's just the vertex at 0, 0, right? It's just that hump, right? So if I look at it, y equal negative x squared So my vertex is at 0, 0. And it opens down because it's a negative a value. Do you see that? We'll talk about how can we graph the other points later on. But what's important right now is that you see that your vertex, which is where you're changing of direction, right, is at 0, 0. Give me, what did we have for B? What was it? Negative. What is it? Can you tell me? Negative bracket x minus 3 squared. That's it? Okay. So it's the blue one right here. What's the vertex here? 3, 0, yeah? And is that what we said the vertex is? Yes.
So the AOS from the vertex is the exact same thing.
The AOS, the axis of symmetry, is part of your vertex. We'll talk about
Same coordinate, no?
the axis of symmetry is the x value of your vertex. So when you look at the x value of your vertex, right? So the x value, so the vertex here is 3, 0. Yeah? So this part of the vertex is called the axis of symmetry. And this part is either your max or your min. In this case, it's your max.
Vertical, so the AOS is just one number.
That's right. Okay? And the vertex is a point with the x and the y value. Okay? Are we okay with this? Everyone's okay with this? All right. Can you tell me what's your vertex for E? Yeah. 2, 2, comma 1. Yeah. Okay. Which way does it open? Opens down because your A value is negative, right? How about for F? What's the vertex? Right? And then which way does it open? Are we okay with this? All right. Now, what's your axis of symmetry for this one? X equals 3, yeah? Because if I'm going to draw the axis of symmetry, it's going to be right here, which is at x equals 3. And we said that the axis of symmetry is the same thing as the x part of your vertex, right? Perfect. So, if the question is asking me what is the equation of the axis of symmetry for the following equation, what would I say? 3? Yeah, because my vertex is 3, 5, and this part of the axis of symmetry of my vertex is my axis of symmetry. Yeah? So I would say that the axis of symmetry is x equals 3. Okay? So I identify my vertex, and then the x part of the vertex is my axis of symmetry. Make sure that when you write your vertex, you put it in parentheses. You put it in brackets, because the brackets means a point. This is a very important part of your point. Okay? So, whenever you want to find the axis of symmetry when it's in vertex form, write your vertex first and then state your axis of symmetry. Okay? Can you guys help me with this? Let's answer this question. So what is the equation of the axis of symmetry for the following equation?
So you do the vertex first.
The vertex first. So what's my vertex?
0.
0, 0. Yeah. So the axis of symmetry is x equals 0. Which way does this graph open? Down, because it's a negative 1. Yeah. If you are able to identify which way does it open and your vertex and basically the axis of symmetry, which is part of your vertex, you should be able to.
So basically, if it's negative, it opens down.
If the A value is negative, it opens down. If the A value is positive, it opens up. Yeah. And then you should be able to identify your vertex. Well, we're going to have to graph quadratics now.
When's the last of this class?
Today is the last lesson. Oh, break is the 20th is the last day.
7. You should have already done that.
You can still do that. Okay. In order for us to be able to graph, okay, what we're going to learn how to graph using a table of value. Okay? So with using a table of value, we're going to have to set the values for x. So we're going to pick the values of x, or someone's going to pick them for you. And then you're going to have to plug in the values of x into your equation and then solve for y using BEDMAS. Okay? So here's a question. Do you guys understand what BEDMAS stands for? BEDMAS represents brackets, exponent, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. So it's in the order that, so first thing you do the brackets first. Whatever is inside the bracket, that's what you have to simplify first. Then you do your exponent. Then you do multiplication or division, whatever appears first. And then you do your subtraction or addition. Okay? So, if they want you to graph this equation, y equals x minus 1 squared plus 2. Can you identify a few things for me here? What can you find?
The vertex
What's the vertex?
is 1, 2.
Can you tell me which way is this graph going to open? It's going to go open up. Good. Now here's what they did for you. Okay? They gave you values for x. Eyes on the board for a second. So these values are already given to you. These are the values of x. Okay? And they want you to find the values of y that belongs to each x. Okay? So what you have to do, you have to take the x value and you're going to plug it in for x. So that's going to be y equal negative 3 minus 1 plus squared plus 2. So what I did is I replaced the x value with the x that's given to me. Okay? Now, let's do the BEDMAS. So brackets first. So inside the bracket, negative 3 minus 1 gives me what? What's negative 3 minus 1? Negative 4 squared plus 2. What comes after brackets? exponent. So I have to do negative 4 squared. What's negative 4 squared? What's negative 4 times negative 4? 16. And then I add 2. So my answer is going to be 18. Okay? So I will repeat this. So what I do first, when I do the table of values, is I plug in the given x in for x, and then I follow bed math. So instead of x, I'm replacing it with a negative 3. So that's going to be, so instead of that x, I will replace it with the x value that's given to me. BEDMAS says I have to do brackets first. So I have to do whatever's inside the bracket first, which is negative 3 minus 1. Negative 3 minus 1 gives me negative 4. After brackets, I have exponents. So exponents mean I have to do the negative 4 squared. Negative 4 squared, that gives me 16. Because negative 4 times negative 4, that's plus 16. So that gives me the 16, and I'm going to add the 2, which is going to give me 18. So for the x value, negative 3, my y value is 18. Okay? So I'm going to write this as a point. So that's going to be negative 3, 18. That's a point. Now let's put together the second point. So if I put, for x, I'm going to put negative 2. So you see how I replace the x with negative 2. So that's right. So negative 2 minus 1, what do I get? Because I have to do the brackets first. So what's negative 2 minus 1? Negative 3. After I do the brackets, what do? Exponent. Negative 3 squared gives me positive 9. Yes, because anything squared becomes positive. So because look at this, negative 3 times negative 3. What's negative times negative? Positive. 3 times 3 is 9. And then 9 plus 2 is 11, yeah? So my point is negative 2, 11. Now I have to do the same thing with negative 1. So y equals negative 1 minus 1 squared plus 2. Let's do that in one step. Or do you want me to do it step by step? Inside the bracket, what do I do first? Inside the bracket, negative 1 minus 1, that's negative 2. Negative 2 squared is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. Again, I'm going to have to replace x with a 0. 0 minus 1, that's negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. And 1 plus 2 is 3. So my point is 0, 3. My next point is I'm replacing x with a 1. One minus 1, that's 0. 0 squared is 0 plus 2, so that equals to 2. So my point here is 1, 2. X value is 2. 2 minus 1, that's 1. 1 squared is 1. Plus 2, that's 3. And last but not least is I'm going to put 3 in for x. 3 minus 1, that's 2. 2 squared, that's 4. Add 2 is 6. So you see that I have multiple points right now that I can actually use and graph. So if they don't give you the values of the x values, you guys can pick whatever you want. I usually pick values around the vertex. So I look at the x value of the vertex, which is in this case is 1, and I pick values that are above and below that 1. Okay? If I don't know what x values to plug in, okay? I look at the vertex, the x value of the vertex is 1. Then I pick values around the 1. So 0, 2, 3, things like that. Can we graph this now? Just gonna have to do this one more time. So if I'm going to graph this, you see that I need most of the y values are positive, or all of the y values are positive, so I need more values on the positive y. I might not be able to fit all the points. And I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then my y values, my x values, -3, -2, -1, 1, 2, 3. So -3 is 18. -2 is 11. -1 is 6. 0, 3, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 6. If I go to 4, do you know what it's going to be? If I go to 4, do you know what is it going to be? The y value? It's going to be 11 because of that symmetry. Right? So it's going to be 11. If I go to 5, it's going to be 18. Right? Because of that symmetry. Because remember that if I take this graph and I fold it in half, right? They have to overlap. Okay? does the vertex fall on whatever we said earlier that it's going to fall on? What did we say the vertex was? 1 and 2. Is that where my vertex is? Yeah. What did we say? Which way is it going to open? Up. Is it opening up? Yes. What's my axis of symmetry? It's x equals to 1. Right? Because the axis of symmetry is going to be right here. Yeah? So everything that you have learned and looked at, it has to come in the graph. Right? Do I have any x-intercepts here? No x-intercepts, right? Because it's opening up and it's above the x-axis. Right? It's not going to intersect the x-axis. Can you tell me what your y-intercept is? 3. 3. Y equals 3. So this is where your y-intercept. So these are what we learned yesterday, right? So this is your y-intercept. Yeah? So this is where your graph is intersecting the y-axis. Okay? All right? That's it for the lesson, and that's it for our course.